Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about 3 doors that can invite demons into our lives. But here's the good news: these doors can be closed. The enemy is always trying to find ways to sneak in, to steal your joy, your peace, and your destiny. But when we recognize these doors, we have the power to shut them and step into the abundant life that God has prepared for us. Door 1, the door of unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is one of the most dangerous doors we can open. It's like holding a grudge and carrying a burden you were never meant to carry. When you refuse to forgive, you're giving the enemy a foothold in your life. You're allowing bitterness to take root. And it can spread to every area of your life, your relationships, your health, your peace of mind. But today I want to encourage you to close that door. Forgiveness is not for the person who hurt you, it's for you. When you forgive, you let go of the weight that's been holding you down, and you make room for God's peace and healing. Door 2, the door of fear. Fear is another door that the enemy loves to exploit. Fear tells you that you're not good enough, that you can't do it, that you're going to fail. But God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Fear is a lie, and when you face it with faith, you will overcome it. Close the door to fear and step into your future with boldness and confidence, knowing that you were created to be a conqueror. Door 3, the door of negative self-talk. The third door that invites demons is negative self-talk. So often we're our own worst critics. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, that we'll never succeed, or that we're not worthy of the good things God wants to do in our lives. But I want to tell you today, you are enough. You are worthy of all the blessings and promises God has in store for you. When you speak life over yourself, when you choose to declare that you are strong, capable, and full of potential, you close the door to negativity and open the door to all that God has for you. Every day we are presented with choices. Some may seem small and insignificant, while others feel monumental. But the reality is, every choice we make shapes our future. It might be hard to grasp at times, but the simple decisions we make today have the power to influence not only our tomorrow, but the entire trajectory of our lives. The power of choice is one of the greatest gifts we've been given, and how we use that power determines the life we live. Life doesn't just happen to us, we actively participate in it. We might not be able to control everything that comes our way, but we have the ability to control how we respond, how we react, and ultimately how we choose to move forward. The choices we make, whether in moments of calm or in the midst of chaos, are what define us. We decide whether we allow fear, doubt, or negativity to take root in our hearts, or whether we embrace faith, gratitude, and hope. One of the most empowering truths is that we are not victims of circumstance. Our circumstances do not dictate our worth or our future. Even in the face of adversity, we hold the key to our own destiny. Now, it is through the choices we make in those challenging times that we demonstrate who we truly are. Do we choose to rise above the situation, or do we allow it to break us down? Do we choose to see setbacks as opportunities for growth, or do we get stuck in self-pity and discouragement? The power of choice gives us the strength to navigate through life's challenges with grace and resilience. The beauty of choice is that it is always available to us. We might not always feel like we're in control, especially when things don't go the way we plan, but we always have a choice in how we respond. It might be a choice to forgive even when it feels impossible. It could be the decision to keep going even when the road ahead seems too difficult to walk. Or perhaps it's simply choosing to focus on what we can control rather than obsessing over what we cannot. One of the most significant choices we can make is the choice to believe in ourselves. Life has a way of throwing challenges and obstacles in our path, but we always have a choice to believe that we are capable of overcoming them. Self-doubt is one of the greatest enemies we can face, but when we choose to trust in our potential, we can accomplish far more than we ever thought possible. It's easy to let fear and insecurity control us, but when we choose to move forward despite those feelings, we open the door to growth and transformation. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. Choosing positivity is another powerful way to harness the power of choice. The world is full of negativity, but we can decide to rise above it. The things we listen to, the people we surround ourselves with, and the thoughts we allow to take root in our minds all shape the direction of our lives. When we choose to focus on the good, to look for the silver lining, even in the midst of hardship, we begin to transform our perspective. The more we make that choice, the easier it becomes, and the more joy, peace, and gratitude we invite into our lives. Positive choices may not always make the situation easier, but they make the journey more meaningful. It's also essential to remember that not all choices are one-time decisions. Some choices are ongoing, requiring us to reaffirm our commitment to growth and positivity day after day. We don't make one choice and then forget about it. We choose again and again and again, and with each decision, we get closer to becoming the person we are meant to be. That's the power of choice. It is in our hands at every moment, guiding us toward our fullest potential. Ultimately, the power of choice is the power to shape our own lives. It's about taking responsibility for where we are and where we're going. It's about recognizing that we don't have to be defined by our past or be controlled by our circumstances. We can choose to break free from limitations, to grow, to change, and to live with purpose and passion. The power of choice is the ability to step into a new chapter at any time, to rewrite our story, and to create the life we've always dreamed of. In life, we often find ourselves facing challenges, obstacles, and difficulties. Some of these are external forces, circumstances, or events beyond our control. But many times, the greatest struggles come from within, and the enemy we face is not always something we can see or touch. Recognizing the enemy is crucial because it allows us to understand what we're up against and, more importantly, how to rise above it. The enemy often takes the form of our thoughts, doubts, fears, and insecurities. It's easy to get caught up in the external distractions of life, but the truth is, the most significant battles we face are fought in our minds. Negative thoughts can seep into our consciousness, telling us we are not good enough, we don't deserve success, or that we'll never be able to overcome the obstacles in our way. These thoughts can become the enemy, clouding our judgment and preventing us from seeing the possibilities in our lives. This enemy thrives on self-doubt. When we begin to question our abilities or feel like we don't have what it takes, the enemy gets stronger. Self-doubt paralyzes us, convincing us that we can't move forward. It whispers lies about our worth and our potential, trying to keep us stuck in a cycle of fear and hesitation. Recognizing this as the enemy is the first step in defeating it. Once we acknowledge the negative thoughts for what they are lies, we can begin to push them aside and replace them with truths about who we are and what we are capable of. Fear is another powerful enemy that we must recognize. Fear has a way of sneaking into our lives when we least expect it. It often presents itself as a protective mechanism, warning us of danger or uncertainty. While some fears are natural and can serve a purpose, many are based on false assumptions and exaggerations. Fear can hold us back from pursuing our dreams, from stepping into new opportunities, and from taking the risks that are necessary for growth. Fear tells us that we're not ready, that we'll fail, or that the worst possible outcome will happen. But when we recognize fear for what it is, an illusion that tries to prevent us from moving forward, we can choose not to give in to it. We can choose to face fear with courage and move ahead despite the uncertainty. Another enemy we must recognize is anger. Anger, when allowed to fester, can be destructive. It can damage relationships, cloud our judgment, and prevent us from finding peace. Anger often arises when we feel hurt or wronged, and it can be easy to justify holding on to it. But the longer we carry anger, the more power it has over us. It keeps us trapped in the past, constantly reliving the offenses that caused us pain. Recognizing anger as an enemy allows us to release its grip on us. When we choose forgiveness over resentment, we break free from the chains of anger and open the door to healing and restoration. Unforgiveness is another form of the enemy. It's an insidious force that prevents us from moving forward. Holding on to grudges keeps us bound to the past and to people who have hurt us. The enemy tells us that forgiveness is too difficult, that the person doesn't deserve it, or that we're letting them off the hook. But in reality, forgiveness is for us. It frees us from the weight of bitterness and allows us to find peace. Recognizing unforgiveness as the enemy helps us to let go of the past and step into the future with a heart that is light and open. Procrastination is yet another enemy that we often fail to recognize. It comes in many forms, from putting off important tasks to avoiding difficult decisions. Procrastination keeps us from achieving our goals, living out our purpose, and making progress. It tells us that we have more time, that we can wait until tomorrow, or that the task is too overwhelming to tackle. But when we recognize procrastination as an enemy, we can take action. We can choose to take small steps forward and build momentum toward our dreams. The enemy also hides in our tendency to compare ourselves to others. Comparison is one of the most insidious enemies of peace and joy. When we constantly measure ourselves against others, we lose sight of our own unique strengths and value. Comparison leads to feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, and discontent. It takes our focus off our own path and distracts us from what we are meant to accomplish. Recognizing comparison as the enemy allows us to embrace our individuality and stop worrying about how we measure up to others. Ultimately, recognizing the enemy is about becoming aware of the forces internal and external that try to hinder our progress. It's about identifying the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that hold us back from stepping into our full potential. Once we recognize the enemy, we can take control. We don't have to be ruled by fear, anger, doubt, or any other negative force. We have the power to overcome these enemies by choosing to think positively, act with courage, forgive freely, and focus on our own journey. When we recognize the enemy, we regain control and take the first step toward victory. In our journey through life, we often encounter battles, struggles, and challenges that seem to arise unexpectedly. While many of these come from external sources, a significant number of our greatest obstacles are the ones we don't see coming. These battles are not fought in the physical world, but in our minds, hearts, and spirits. Recognizing the enemy is a crucial step in understanding what we're up against and, more importantly, learning how to rise above it. The enemy is not always something we can touch or see. It's often something we must recognize within ourselves. The first and most powerful enemy we face is often our own thoughts. Negative thoughts, doubts, and fears can sneak in without warning, clouding our judgment and pushing us toward a place of inaction. These negative thoughts come in many forms, but they often speak the same language: you're not good enough, you'll never make it, this is too difficult for you. Over time, these thoughts become ingrained in our minds and begin to shape the way we see ourselves in the world around us. They create a wall of doubt that prevents us from pursuing our dreams and living up to our full potential. Recognizing that these negative thoughts are the enemy is the first step in defeating them. We must learn to identify when these thoughts are creeping in, understand that they are not a reflection of our true selves, and choose to reject them. We have the power to change the narrative in our minds and replace lies with truth. Fear is another enemy that often sneaks up on us. It doesn't always announce itself loudly, but rather quietly, making its presence known through hesitation, avoidance, and discomfort. Fear can take many forms: the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of the unknown, or even the fear of success. It creates a sense of paralysis that keeps us stuck in our current situation, preventing us from stepping out into the new and unknown. Fear makes us question our abilities, our worth, and our future. However, fear is often based on illusion. It's the product of what might happen, not what is actually happening. Recognizing fear for what it is, a false and limiting belief, is key to overcoming it. When we see fear for what it truly is, an illusion designed to hold us back, we can face it with courage and move forward, regardless of the uncertainty that lies ahead. Another enemy that can have a profound impact on our lives is anger. Anger, when left unchecked, can wreak havoc on our relationships, our health, and our peace of mind. It often arises when we feel wronged, hurt, or misunderstood. While it's natural to feel anger in certain situations, allowing it to consume us is what makes it dangerous. Anger blinds us to the bigger picture and keeps us trapped in a cycle of resentment and bitterness. It distorts our perception of the situation and the people around us, causing us to act out in ways that we might later regret. Recognizing anger as an enemy means understanding that it doesn't serve us. It only holds us hostage to the past and prevents us from experiencing the peace and joy that come from letting go. When we choose to release anger and choose forgiveness instead, we break free from its hold and make room for healing and growth. Unforgiveness is another form of the enemy that keeps us trapped. Holding on to grudges and refusing to forgive others may feel justified at first, but in the long run, it only harms us. It is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. Unforgiveness creates a barrier between us and peace. It keeps us tethered to past wounds and prevents us from moving forward. Recognizing unforgiveness as the enemy is a powerful realization. When we forgive, we are not excusing someone else's actions, but we are freeing ourselves from the prison of bitterness. We open the door to healing and release the power that the past has over us. Procrastination is another silent enemy that robs us of progress. It convinces us that we have all the time in the world, and it keeps us in a constant state of tomorrow. It tells us that we can wait until we're ready, until the conditions are perfect, or until we feel more confident. However, this constant delay prevents us from taking the necessary steps toward our goals and dreams. Procrastination often hides behind fear, perfectionism, or the false belief that we can always do it later. But the reality is that tomorrow is never guaranteed, and the longer we wait, the further away our goals get. Recognizing procrastination as the enemy is the first step in overcoming it. We must choose to act, even if we don't feel ready. Taking small steps today creates momentum and moves us closer to where we want to be. Finally, comparison is an enemy that many of us face in today's world. It's so easy to look at the success and accomplishments of others and measure ourselves against them. Comparison tells us that we're not enough, that we haven't done enough, or that we're falling short. It creates feelings of inadequacy and jealousy, distracting us from our own unique journey. Recognizing comparison as the enemy helps us to shift our focus back to ourselves. Our path is unique and our worth is not determined by how we measure up to someone else. When we embrace our individuality and stop comparing ourselves to others, we can focus on our own progress and achievements, which leads to fulfillment and peace. In life, we will always face challenges and enemies, but the key is to recognize them for what they are. When we identify the forces, whether they are fear, doubt, anger, procrastination, or comparison, we take away their power. The enemy can only defeat us if we allow it to. By recognizing the enemy, we can choose to rise above it, face it with strength, and move forward into the life we are meant to live. Unforgiveness is one of the most powerful barriers we can place in our own lives. It may seem justifiable at first, especially when someone has hurt or wronged us deeply. The pain, the betrayal, the sense of injustice can feel overwhelming, and holding on to that hurt can seem like a way to protect ourselves. Yet, in reality, unforgiveness is not just a feeling we carry. It is a heavy door we choose to keep open, a door that invites bitterness, anger, and sadness into our lives. The longer we allow unforgiveness to hold us, the more it takes away from our peace, our joy, and our ability to move forward. When we hold on to unforgiveness, we think we are keeping the other person locked out, but in truth, we are locking ourselves in. The person who hurt us may have moved on with their life while we are still stuck, replaying the offense over and over in our mind. Unforgiveness doesn't hurt the person who wronged us, it hurts us. It keeps us tethered to the past, preventing us from fully experiencing the present. It builds walls around our hearts, making it difficult to experience the love, trust, and connection we deserve. When we choose to hold on to resentment, we give away our peace and joy, leaving us in a state of constant emotional turmoil. Forgiveness does not mean condoning the wrong that was done to us or pretending that it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean that the person who wronged us should go unpunished or that we should simply forget what happened. Forgiveness is not about the other person, it is about us. It is about choosing to release the grip that the offense has on our hearts and allowing ourselves to heal. Forgiveness is about making a conscious decision to stop letting the hurt control us. When we forgive, we are not saying that what happened was okay. We are saying that we will no longer let the offense dictate our emotional state, our peace, or our future. The truth is, unforgiveness keeps us in bondage. It ties us to past pain, to past hurt, to past injustices. But forgiveness opens the door to freedom. It allows us to step out of the prison we've created for ourselves and into a life filled with possibility. When we forgive, we are not just releasing the other person from the offense, but we are releasing ourselves from the grip of anger, bitterness, and resentment. We are freeing ourselves to move forward, to heal, and to grow. Unforgiveness keeps us stuck, but forgiveness allows us to break free and live a life of peace, freedom, and emotional wholeness. It's important to understand that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. At first, it may feel impossible to forgive, especially if the wound is deep. But forgiveness is not an instant feeling, it's a choice we make. It's a choice to let go of the bitterness, to stop rehearsing the offense in our minds, and to stop wishing harm upon the person who hurt us. It's a choice to release the pain and let it go, even when it feels like we're not ready to. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we immediately forget or that we no longer feel the hurt. It means that we decide not to let that pain control us anymore. Over time, the more we choose forgiveness, the more healing can begin to take place in our hearts. Forgiveness is also an act of faith. It requires trust that God is in control and that He sees what has happened to us. It's trusting that He will heal our wounds, that He will make things right, and that He will give us the strength to move on. When we forgive, we are choosing to let go of the need for revenge or justice and to leave it in God's hands. God is the ultimate judge, and He can handle the situation far better than we can. Forgiveness is an act of obedience, a surrender of our need to control the situation or the outcome. It's trusting that God will take care of the details as we choose to release the offense. One of the most beautiful things about forgiveness is that it opens the door to reconciliation. While forgiveness does not always mean that the relationship will return to the way it was, it does allow the possibility of healing and restoration. When we forgive, we create space for God to work in both our lives and the life of the person who hurt us. We invite God's grace and love into the situation, trusting that He can bring healing where there was once pain. Forgiveness may not always lead to reconciliation in every relationship, but it always leads to peace in our hearts. Unforgiveness is a door we can choose to close. The longer we keep it open, the more we allow the enemy to have a foothold in our lives. But when we choose to forgive, we take back our power. We choose peace over pain, healing over bitterness, and freedom over bondage. Today we have the power to close the door to unforgiveness and open the door to a new beginning, one filled with hope, restoration, and the peace that comes from letting go of the past. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the chains of bitterness and opens the door to the freedom we deserve. Fear is a powerful force that can paralyze us, holding us back from stepping into the life we are meant to live. It often arrives uninvited, creeping into our hearts and minds and making everything seem impossible. Fear can take many forms. It might show up as the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, or the fear of the unknown. Sometimes it's the fear of not being good enough, or the fear that we won't live up to our potential. When fear enters, it distorts our perception, making obstacles appear larger than they are and opportunities seem out of reach. Fear doesn't just affect our actions, it affects our thoughts and emotions. It holds us captive in a cycle of self-doubt and hesitation, convincing us that we're not ready, not qualified, or not worthy. It convinces us that things will go wrong before we even try, and it keeps us from taking that first step toward change. It often tells us to stay safe, stay where we are, and avoid taking risks. In this way, fear can create a prison, locking us in a life of comfort and routine, preventing us from experiencing growth, new opportunities, or the fulfillment that comes from stepping out of our comfort zones. When we live with fear, we often find ourselves shrinking back from challenges and opportunities. Fear tells us that we are too small to accomplish big things, too inexperienced to try something new, or too broken to be used for a greater purpose. It whispers lies that we aren't capable of achieving our dreams or fulfilling the calling placed on our lives. However, the truth is that fear is often an illusion. The challenges and obstacles that we fear may seem overwhelming, but when we face them head on, we realize that we are much stronger than we thought. The more we allow fear to control us, the more we give it power over our lives. Fear thrives when we give it room to grow. To break free from fear, we must choose to face it. It takes courage to move forward when fear is present. But that's exactly what makes us stronger. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. When we confront fear and take action in spite of it, we open the door to new possibilities. Every step we take, no matter how small, weakens fear's hold on us. Fear tries to keep us stuck, but with each decision to act, we show fear that it no longer controls us. The key to overcoming fear is understanding that we don't have to face it alone. We are not powerless in the face of fear. There is strength that comes from faith, from trusting that we are not walking this journey on our own. When we lean on our faith, we realize that we don't have to have everything figured out or have all the answers. Fear can make us feel like we have to be perfect, but the reality is that we don't need perfection, just faith and the willingness to take a step forward, even when we can't see the entire path. When we close the door to fear, we open the door to courage, to growth, and to a life filled with possibilities. Fear will always be there trying to creep back in, but we have the power to choose how we respond. We can either let it keep us trapped, or we can choose to face it, embrace the unknown, and trust that the journey is worth the risk. The door of fear is always ready to be closed, and once we do, we make room for peace, confidence, and the incredible opportunities that await. Closing doors to the past can be one of the most liberating and necessary steps we take in our lives. Too often, we find ourselves bound by memories, regrets, and experiences that no longer serve us. The past, with all its pain, disappointments, and mistakes, can become a heavy burden if we don't learn to let go. The memories of failed relationships, missed opportunities, or personal shortcomings can prevent us from embracing the present and looking toward the future with hope and excitement. Holding on to the past keeps us anchored in a place we can no longer change, and it keeps us from stepping into the life we are meant to live. When we allow ourselves to dwell on past hurts, mistakes, or failures, we create a barrier between who we are today and who we are meant to become. Regret can be a powerful force, whispering lies like, "You're not good enough, you'll never overcome this, or you don't deserve a better future." These lies can keep us stuck in a cycle of self-doubt and self-blame, causing us to replay the same negative thoughts over and over again. This mental trap prevents us from moving forward and reaching our full potential. One of the most difficult aspects of closing doors to the past is the emotional attachment we have to it. Our past, even the painful parts, can feel familiar and comfortable. We may feel like we are betraying ourselves or forgetting who we once were by letting go of these memories. However, holding on to the past out of a sense of loyalty to it only keeps us from growing. We have to understand that our past does not define us. It is simply a part of our story, but it does not determine our future. What matters now is what we do today and how we choose to shape our lives moving forward. The process of closing doors to the past is not about forgetting or erasing the memories, but about releasing the power those memories hold over us. It's about choosing to stop living in the shadows of what's already happened and stepping into the light of what can be. This requires forgiveness both of ourselves and others. Often we are the ones who need to let go of the guilt or shame we carry from past mistakes. We may also need to forgive others who have wronged us, not because they deserve it, but because we deserve peace. Holding on to anger and resentment only keeps us tethered to a time that has already passed, preventing us from finding healing and moving forward. When we close doors to the past, we are also creating space for new opportunities, new relationships, and new experiences. Letting go allows us to make room for growth, joy, and peace. It is an act of trust, a declaration that we believe our best days are ahead of us and not behind us. Closing the door on past hurts means we are opening the door to hope, possibility, and transformation. It means we are no longer living as victims of our past, but stepping into the future as victors of our own story. The beauty of closing doors to the past is that it empowers us to take control of our lives. We no longer have to live under the weight of old mistakes, disappointments, or wounds. Instead, we get to choose how we move forward. We get to decide the direction we want our lives to take, and with each step we take toward the future, we are leaving behind the chains of the past that once held us back. Closing these doors isn't just about moving on, it's about moving up, moving forward, and stepping into the fullness of all we were created to be. Comparison is a door that many of us open without realizing the damage it causes. At first glance, it may seem harmless. It's natural to look around at others and measure ourselves against their accomplishments, their success, their happiness, or their lifestyle. But if we're not careful, this seemingly innocent habit can quickly turn into something that steals our joy, disrupts our peace, and prevents us from fully embracing who we are and what we've been given. The door of comparison is a trap that leads to self-doubt, discontentment, and a sense of inadequacy, leaving us always feeling like we're not enough. When we compare ourselves to others, we often focus on their successes and ignore their struggles. We see only the polished, finished product, not the hard work, setbacks, or failures they faced along the way. This creates an illusion that others have it all together and that we are somehow falling short. We may begin to believe that we don't measure up or that our efforts are not enough. We start thinking that everyone else is further ahead, more talented, more attractive, or more accomplished than we are, and we start to feel less worthy or capable. Comparison also fosters a spirit of jealousy, making us fixate on what others have that we don't. It might be material things, achievements, relationships, or even the way they carry themselves. When we allow ourselves to be consumed by comparison, we miss the beauty of our own journey and the unique gifts we bring to the world. Instead of celebrating our own progress, we waste time looking over our shoulder at someone else's progress. This constant measuring up can make us feel like we're always lagging behind, never quite reaching the bar set by others. But here's the truth: we were never meant to measure our worth by someone else's standard. Each person's journey is unique, and comparing our own lives to others only robs us of our own path. God created us with individual talents, experiences, and purposes, and our value isn't determined by what anyone else does or doesn't do. The comparison game is dangerous because it overlooks the uniqueness of our own story. We can't compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. When we try, we lose sight of our own progress and the victories we've achieved, no matter how small they may seem. The door of comparison also holds us back from becoming the person we are truly meant to be. It makes us conform to someone else's mold, pushing us to chase things that may not even align with our own passions, values, or purpose. Instead of growing into the best version of ourselves, we end up chasing a version of success that doesn't belong to us. We waste our time and energy trying to measure up to someone else's life, when what we should be doing is embracing our own. The key to overcoming the door of comparison is learning to embrace our own journey and celebrate our own progress. It starts with gratitude, thanking God for the unique opportunities, experiences, and abilities that we have. When we are grateful for what we have and where we are, we stop looking around and start looking inward. Instead of focusing on what we lack or what we wish we had, we begin to recognize the blessings we already possess. Gratitude shifts our focus from what others have to what we've been given, and in that shift, we find contentment. Another powerful way to close the door of comparison is by recognizing the beauty in our own individuality. We are all on different paths with different timelines, and that's okay. There is no one else like you, and that is your strength. Embrace who you are, your unique qualities, and the special gifts you bring to the world. It's only when we stop trying to be like someone else that we can truly begin to thrive as the person we were created to be. We also need to stop measuring success by external markers. Success isn't always about what we can see on the outside, it's about what's happening on the inside. It's about personal growth, resilience, and living in alignment with our purpose. Success isn't defined by how many followers you have, how much money you make, or what accolades you've received. True success is about being content in the process, embracing where you are, and trusting that you are exactly where you need to be at this moment in time. Finally, we must learn to be kind to ourselves. We are often our own harshest critics, and the standards we set for ourselves are often unattainable. Instead of criticizing ourselves for not measuring up, we need to give ourselves grace. Celebrate your efforts, your progress, and your victories, no matter how small. Remember that every step forward, no matter how slow, is a step in the right direction. The door of comparison will always be there, trying to lure us in with the illusion that someone else has it all together. But when we choose to close that door and embrace our own journey, we unlock the freedom to grow, to thrive, and to live fully as the unique individuals we were created to be. The more we focus on our own path and stop looking around, the more we will experience the peace and joy that comes from simply being ourselves.